You hear the river first, a low hum moving through the trees. Then the walls rise out of the mist like a memory that never left. This is Berg Eltz, a castle that has held one family for over 850 years. The same bloodline, through wars, plagues and revolutions. No other fortress in Germany can say the same. The first record came in 1157. A knight named Rudolphus von Eltz signed his name to a document under Emperor Frederick Barbarossa. That single line of ink began a story that still lives in stone. The Eltz built their home on a high rock surrounded by the Elsbach stream, deep inside a valley no army could reach easily. The water curled around three sides like a moat carved by time. The fourth side faced the forest, their shield and their secret. By 1268, the family had grown too large for one roof. Three branches formed: the Rübenach, the Rodendorf, and the Kempenich. They chose not to split their land, but to build inside the same walls. 3 houses rose together, each with its own tower, staircase, and hearth. From above, it looked like 3 fortresses pressed into one. They called it a Garnabenberg, a castle shared by heirs who refused to divide it. They lived like neighbours inside the same fortress, bound by stone and pride. In 1331, Archbishop Baldwin of Trier came with soldiers. He wanted control of their land and their loyalty. The Eltz said no. For 5 years, Baldwin attacked from a new fortress he built, facing theirs. Eltz, the Castle of Defiance. Stones flew across the valley, walls shook, but Eltz held. In the end, the knights swore allegiance on paper, but their homes stayed standing. They gave up titles, never their gates. Through the centuries that followed, the 30 Years' War, the French invasions, even Napoleon's rise, Berg Eltz stayed untouched. Fires burned across the Rhineland, but the Eltz used diplomacy where others used swords. In 1815, Count Hugo Philipp zu Eltz bought back every remaining share and made the castle whole again. Since then, 34 generations have carried that promise forward. So what happens when a home outlives every war that tried to erase it? And what if the next fortress in our story was never meant to survive at all? Yet someone made sure it did, for reasons that still divide historians today. The rooms inside Berg Eltz feel alive. You can hear old footsteps under the wood. You can smell the damp of the valley after rain. Every wall carries a small sound, a breath, a hinge, a faint echo of someone who lived and argued and swore to never leave. In the 1400s, 3 families shared those same corridors. They cooked, prayed, and raised children under one roof, but each guarded their own hall. The Rübenach wing held bright stained glass and carved ceilings from the late Gothic years. The Rodendorf chambers added French art and fine plaster. The Kempenich tower stayed plain and defensive, its windows narrow, its stairs tight and twisting. You can still see the layers of time stacked over each other like pages that refuse to close. Then came the long wars of Europe. In 1618, when the 30 Years' War began, the Rhine burned with siege fires. Berg Eltz stayed quiet. Count Hans Anton zu Eltz served as an officer in the French army, so his home stayed off the target maps. That choice saved it. Many called him a traitor, but he saved every beam and vault for the next generation. By the late 1700s, revolutions swept through the continent. The Eltz family fled their own valley as French troops seized noble lands. The castle fell silent, but it held. In 1815, Count Hugo Philipp zu Eltz came back from exile, buying back every lost share one by one. For the first time in 600 years, Berg Eltz stood whole again under one name. Restoration took most of the 1800s. Count Karl zu Eltz spent 40 years and 184,000 marks repairing the fortress without changing its shape. He replaced decayed beams, reopened the chapel, and hung the old tapestries again. Every fix came with respect. No modern flourishes, no new facades. He called it work in conversation with the dead. Today, the same bloodline still guards those keys. They fought with diplomacy, with loyalty, with patience, never with fire. And while Eltz survived every century of war, the next fortress in our journey was built to die. Its creator poured millions into a dream that ended with scandal, theft, and one vanished body. What truth still lies buried under that unfinished masterpiece? By the time the 1800s ended, Berg Eltz had outlived every empire that tried to own it. The wars faded, but the valley stayed the same. Mist curling over the stream, oaks leaning toward the walls as if listening. The castle had become more than a home. It was proof that patience could beat fire. Count Karl's work finished in 1888. The restoration used over 300 workers and cost 184,000 marks. A fortune then. He refused to modernize it. No concrete, no shortcuts. Every roof tile was made to match the medieval originals. Visitors said the place felt untouched, like stepping straight into the 1400s. Even Kaiser Wilhelm II admired it, calling it a fortress of loyalty in a faithless age. The 1900s brought railways, cameras, and 2 world wars. The Eltz family stayed through both. When bombs fell across the Rhine in the 1940s, Berg Eltz stood hidden by trees, untouched again. Locals said the forest protected it, that even the plains avoided it. After the war, the family opened the gates to the public for the first time. For the first time in 8 centuries, strangers walked through their halls. In the 1960s, the castle appeared on the 500 Deutsche Mark note, Germany's highest value currency. Every shopkeeper carried a piece of it in their hands. The drawing came from the east view, showing all 8 towers like an uneven crown. It was a quiet honor. Berg Eltz had gone from secret fortress to national emblem. Then came the modern siege. In 2009, engineers discovered deep cracks in the stone. The walls had shifted by a few centimeters, threatening collapse. So they drilled 45 steel anchors into the bedrock, each 25 meters long. It saved the castle once again, this time from gravity itself. 8.5 centuries, one family, one fortress, through every kind of war, through every age of ruin and repair. But our next story turns the idea of legacy upside down, a place where loyalty became obsession, money turned to madness, and a man built his dream one stone at a time, before drowning in it. What drove him that far? In 1869, deep in the Bavarian Alps, King Ludwig II laid the first stone of his retreat above the village of Hohenschwangau. He called it Neuschwanstein, the new swan stone. The site stood on the ruins of 2 older keeps. Workers carved roads through cliffs and hauled limestone up the mountain by hand. Each tower rose straight from the rock, like a daydream taking shape. Ludwig paid for every arch himself. He refused funds from the Bavarian parliament and took personal loans that drained the treasury. By 1880, he owed over 14 million marks, enough to build 10 castles. He spent nights awake in candlelight, sketching changes, whispering to his architect, "I want it to sing." The plans called for frescoes of knights, heroes and swans, symbols of purity and loneliness. The sound of hammers echoed through the valley for 17 years, yet the king lived inside the unfinished shell for only a few months. Then came the fall. In June 1886, ministers declared Ludwig insane. They claimed he spent his fortune on fantasies while his kingdom starved. Guards arrested him at night and carried him down the mountain to Lake Starnberg. 3 days later, on June 13th, his body was found floating beside the psychiatrist who had declared him unfit to rule. Both were dead. The water was calm, the cause uncertain. After his death, work stopped. The castle, barely finished, opened to the public just 6 weeks later. The government charged 1 mark for entry, earning back his debts through the very dream they had condemned. Today, more than 1.5 million people visit every year. What he built for solitude became Germany's most photographed landmark. So what truly ended Ludwig's reign? Madness, politics, or murder? And what if the next fortress in this journey hides its secret, not in death, but in silence, where one family's name was erased from the walls they built with their own hands? History often hides its cruelty in plain sight. Some castles shine like crowns, but others bury their stories under silence. High above the Loire Valley stands one such place. Its stone glows pale in the morning, soft and clean, but the beauty hides a tragedy that stretched across centuries. The first tower rose in 1519 under a dreamer too ambitious for his time, King Francis I of France. He wanted a palace that would outshine every fortress in Europe, a home that blended art and power in a single heartbeat. So he ordered the creation of Chambord. The scale was insane. Over 1,800 men worked for nearly 3 decades, carving towers, galleries, and staircases that twisted like puzzles. The central staircase, 2 spirals coiling around each other, came from sketches by Leonardo da Vinci, who died nearby that same year. Each floor floated above the last, like layers of a thought that never stopped growing. During the Revolution, mobs stormed the gates. They stripped every wall of its furniture, burned tapestries, and melted bronze for weapons. Only the stone survived. Later, Napoleon gifted it to one of his generals as a token of gratitude. He stayed 1 night and fled, calling it too grand to breathe in. So the castle waited. For 500 years, it waited through kings, wars, and ghosts of its own creation. And that silence became its curse, the beauty that outlived its purpose. But silence can hide more than dust, because in the next story, the walls speak again, through letters, portraits, and missing names. A castle built by a queen, where love rewrote history and scandal erased her from it. What truth still echoes behind her locked chamber doors? Some stories begin with love, others end with it. This one tried to do both. In 1515, a teenage girl named Diane de Poitiers caught the eye of a prince, Henry of France, just 11 years old at the time. She was 20. History called her his tutor, his guardian, his friend. But when he became King Henry II in 1547, she became something else entirely. His closest companion, his muse, his shadow. So when Henry gave gifts, he gave her more than jewels. He gave her a river, a forest, and a castle. The Château de Chenonceau stretched across the Cher River like a bridge between 2 worlds, one built for a queen, the other for a mistress. It began in 1513, under Catherine Brisonnet. who shaped its light arches and elegant halls. But Diane made it hers. Then came the accident. A tournament in Paris. The lance of a young noble struck Henry in the eye. He died days later, bleeding into a velvet pillow. Diane was banned from the funeral by the new queen, Catherine de' Medici. Catherine seized Chenonceau at once, forcing Diane to trade it for another estate. She then claimed the castle for herself, redecorating every room. The same initials remained carved in stone, though now they stood for Catherine. Catherine de' Medici ruled France in an age of fire, the mid-1500s, when religion split kingdoms and neighbours turned into enemies overnight. She learned early that love fades, but fear lasts. After Henry II's death, she became the Queen Mother, guiding 3 sons who all wore the crown and all died too soon. Therefore, she surrounded herself with what she could control: stone, corridors, secret rooms, and loyal eyes. She turned the Louvre into a fortress of politics. Then, in 1573, she ordered a new palace across the Seine, the Tuileries. The architects said the design blended Italian grace with French order. But those who worked there told a darker story. They spoke of hidden staircases and narrow galleries where spies moved unseen. Some claimed Catherine met with her astrologer, Nostradamus, under the stars on the roof. In 1572, the walls of Paris shook with screams. On August 24th, the night of St. Bartholomew's Day, thousands of Protestants were slaughtered after a royal wedding meant to end war. No one agreed who gave the signal, but the timing traced back to Catherine's counsel. When the river ran red, she stayed behind her stone walls, quiet, watching. Later, she died in 1589, alone in the Château de Blois. The priests refused her burial in Paris. The vault stayed closed for months. Even in death, the city hesitated to take her back. And fear lingers longest, where beauty hides it best. Because the next fortress in our journey held beauty too. Endless halls, painted ceilings, and one secret room that redefined what a ruler could keep. What do you lock away when the whole world wants to see inside? Some palaces protect their secrets in shadows. This one hid them in plain sight. In 1682, Louis XIV moved his entire court to a small hunting lodge west of Paris. It had begun as a country escape under his father, but the Sun King turned it into a universe of mirrors and gold. He called it Versailles. What started as a few rooms grew into more than 2,300, a city within a palace. Over 30,000 labourers worked across 2 decades, carving marble, hauling stone, and draining swamps to make the gardens stretch to the horizon. Every detail meant something. The Hall of Mirrors alone held 357 glass panels, a symbol of France's new wealth and its king's endless gaze. The ceilings showed him as Apollo, the god of the sun. Courtiers rose and slept by his schedule, bowing when he woke, whispering through his meals, living as reflections of his will. Versailles was more than a home. It was a system. But behind the glass, the walls had ears. Letters arrived from every province. Servants carried whispers from every room. A network of guards, priests, and spies recorded who visited whom, who smiled at dinner, who frowned. Even the fountains played by order. Water rose only when the king approached. The price was staggering. By 1715, Versailles had drained over 100 million livres from the treasury. France glittered on the surface, but hunger grew in the streets. The same mirrors that captured light also reflected decay. So when the revolution came in 1789, The people marched straight to the gates. They stormed the palace, tore through the chambers, and forced the royal family back to Paris. The monarchy ended where its reflection began. Today, the mirrors still shine, polished by tourists, but the silence under them feels heavy. The same halls that once echoed with music now carry a faint hum of footsteps and cameras. The chandeliers sparkle, but they remember the darkness that followed. And that's where our trail leaves the castles behind, for a place far from Europe, where a fortress rose from desert sands under another empire's dream. A city built for peace, yet born from war. What story begins when the stones are still warm?